Hey mates, welcome to the Loose Carry Podcast. I'm your host, Phoenix Trinidad, and if you are new here, this is Zero Tackle's weekly NRL podcast. And in this episode, of course, we are recapping a state of origin and what changes need to be made for New South Wales. And on the back of origin, who makes that trip over to England for the Ashes? In terms of the premiership season, Penrith are back. They are back, absolutely. We talk about that. Also, the Warriors get their first win in 36 days. So we talk about that and all the action from this round. Let's get to it. All right, as always, joining us, Zero Tackle analyst Darren Parkin. How are you this morning, mate?
Going well. What a origin conclusion that was. I know it wouldn't please necessarily everyone, and then a lot of teams won games they had to win on the weekend. So looking forward to getting into it.
Beautiful. And as always, as well, Lee Addison, a rugby league coach. How are you, buddy?
Really good and really boosted by my Saturday night drive home from a football commitment. I put on the continuous call team and I heard a voice that was familiar, but I'd never heard it on the radio before. Jamie Soward, absolutely brilliant on play-by-play commentary. I am talking... impressed me so much, and as you know, myself and Sowie don't give each other compliments very quickly, but he really did impress me, so I would encourage anybody to try and listen to him.
I saw your little post pop up on Instagram, and I thought it was very nice.
I was genuinely impressed.
I was reading it with the tone of sarcasm, but by the end of it, I was like, oh no, he actually believes this.
No, please don't. To the point where I could see Jamie being on the television.
Absolutely,
that's how good he was. So yeah. I would suggest to everybody listening and everybody in this panel now, try and take the opportunity to listen to him. I was seriously impressed. And
if he does land that big TV gig, all the credit is going to us here at Zero Tackle.
Correct.
Speaking of credit going to Zero Tackle, coming off the back of a New South Wales Blues loss in Origin and a Dragons loss, I thought it'd be appropriate to get the editor of Zero Tackle here, Scott Pryde. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not a good week to come on, eh? I think a few weeks ago you said I'd never come on this show again, and after that intro you might be right.
Well, you have to, mate, because that's why we pay you the big bucks. All right, let's get to the rundown. Alrighty, so as we said, first thing off the top, let's recap some Origin. Scott, how do you feel? Laurie Daly, what do you want? What do you want out of this one?
I would like Laurie Daly not to be the coach next year. As a Blues fan, that was abysmal. New South Wales, they lost all of the effort areas. They lost all of the key moments. And after winning game one in Brisbane, New South Wales had no excuses not to win that series. Obviously, they came within a few goal kicks in game two of doing so, but that performance in game three was appalling. Full credit to Queensland. They were awesome. One of the greatest Origin performances from a team I can remember, but New South Wales were just horrendous. As I said, Laurie Daly can't be the coach next year. I'm sure Lee and Darren have plenty of thoughts as well, but I mean, just horrendous.
The job of a coach is to improve a team. That's the number one job. Improve players, improve a team. They're two cheeks of the same backside, aren't they? And it's pretty clear that Laurie Daly did not improve New South Wales from the last series, number one. I saw the warning signs in game one. So for everybody who's been abusing me in various places, even though they won in game one, there were some warning signs in their attack. Queensland, to their credit, to Billy Slater's credit, they improved their defence in game two quite significantly, but it wasn't the finished article. Game three, it basically nearly shut New South Wales out. The 24-12 scoreline actually flatters New South Wales. New South Wales, their attack in game two was awful. I argued that without momentum, their steady state attack was really poor. They didn't have any momentum in game three, really. Their steady state attack was worse than ever. So not only that, it impacted on their defence too. So I'm afraid I agree with you, Scott. I think that the choice of Laurie Daly in the first place was fraught with danger, and it has born true. It's bared fruit. There must be real coaches out there who are looking at this New South Wales side and really frustrated that yet again another celebrity coach or somebody's friend from way back has been given a job and they've failed miserably.
Well, and that's the thing. I think you raised a point there about the Blues. Game one, they weren't perfect. Game two, they were probably worse. And I think their second half comeback actually papered over a lot of cracks in game two. I couldn't believe that Laurie Daly didn't make changes for game three. I thought he had, Keon Matangi, Terrell May, how those guys didn't play a game in this Origin series is just beyond me. I don't understand it, and I'll never understand it. That those changes weren't made, it might have come on the back of the those cracks being papered over a little bit. But Laurie Daly cannot be the coach next year. It sounds like he's going to be. If that is the case, congratulations Queensland on another series win.
The fact of the matter is, in the last quarter of a century, Queensland have dominated Origin. Okay, so in the year 2000, after the year 2000, the scoreline was 9 series each. It now sits that Queensland have won 8 more series than New South Wales. So in that 25 years, something has fundamentally changed, systemic in particular. And New South Wales, in that meantime, have been chopping and changing their supposed DNA when it comes to Origin, yet they've still lost 3 of the last 4 series as well. So there needs to be fundamental reviews going on south of the Tweed and looking at the whole system.
Well, that's probably a good time to get into the changes for the Blues next year. So, Scott, you wrote an article about this on zerotackle.com. So, what did we make there?
I did. Well, the bottom line is, as Lee just pointed out, the Blues have lost 3 of the last 4 and 4 of the last 6. In an era where the Blues should be dominating, they have a far better talent base to pick from right now, and it's just not happening. And so the way I see it is there needs to be big changes next year, whether Laurie Daly is the coach or not. And so the team I put together, I'm going to read it straight off my second screen here, and then Lee and Darren, you guys feel free to debate. Fullback, I've got Ryan Pappenhausen. The wingers, I've got Brian To'o and Jacob Carraz. I think Zach Lomax needs to go. He just he had 1 good game last year or 2 good games last year, and frankly his series this year wasn't up to par. Stephen Crichton and Latrell Mitchell, I think they survive as the centres, but you could easily bring Bradman Best into the mix there. The halves, this is the big one. I've got Isaiah Katoa at 5'8" and Mitchell Moses at halfback. Nathan Cleary has a losing record in State of Origin. His time, at least for now, is done. Props, Payne Haas, Mitch Barnett returns from injury. I think the Blues really missed him in game 2 and 3 this year. Reece Robson at hooker. Angus Crichton survives in the second row. I've got Liam Martin being dropped. Hudson Young comes into the starting side. I thought he was solid enough this year and probably deserves a crack starting. Cameron Murray, the Blues missed him enormously. He goes in at lock. And then the bench, I've got Connor Watson surviving as the utility, purely based on the fact he is the best utility in New South Wales. Keon Matangi and Terrell May, who I said before I couldn't believe didn't play this year. And I've got Isaiah Yeo surviving on the bench, but honestly, I can see him being dropped as well.
Darren.
What do you reckon, Lee?
Oh, I was going to go to Darren because we've not heard from Darren yet. Poor lad.
Yeah, it's an interesting one based on, as we say, the fact that coming off last series, there was speculation around a few players, like whether Edwards, who'd done a good job, was safe, and they obviously stuck with the tried and true. But then those questions get asked again, Lee, around obviously that stable approach didn't work, and the thing that was interesting out of it, which I'm keen to get your views on, and whether that impacts selection, was in game 1, it felt like New South Wales were connected and Queensland were not. They looked a little bit disjointed. But then by game 3, it was the opposite. I think a lot of scribes, Gus Gould, who were watching the game, said it looked like an Origin team that had been together forever against a bunch of club stars who were very good players, but were almost a bit more individualistic. So how much, when they plan 2026, are they looking at making sure, first and foremost, they have that connection, putting people together that have played together, or mixing that balance up so that you get some sense of stability?
I just want it noted that, like a true coach, I've been writing my notes on a napkin. I scrambled around when Scott started running through his team going, where's my paper, where's my paper? I found a napkin. So, first of all, to your point about connection, Darren, it's very hard to be a connected football team when half your players are injured. There was injured players in that camp. There were players who were carrying knocks. And don't get me wrong, somebody like Payne Haas, his job is quite simple compared to that of a half. It's not a simple job at all, but comparatively it's less complicated. His job is to get goal forward. You can maybe carry one player like that, but so many players carrying knocks wasn't a great thing. To your side, Scott, Pappenhausen really struggles defensively. So the great fullbacks historically have also been good on the defensive side of the football, organising the defensive line and be the last-ditch tackle, etc. I still think right now, as we speak, the best fullback in New South Wales was not picked. So look, Pap will bring lots in attack. Defence is a problem, though. You mentioned Bradman Best in the centres. Certainly think that that's an option. Also, there's a fellow called Katoni Staggs, who's very important up at Brisbane Broncos, who I still think something has to offer. So their depth there is quite good. Latrell Mitchell was picked at centre, and I said this right at the start of the series. If you wind back a few Loose Carry podcasts, I said he didn't pick play. He said he was going to pick players on form. He didn't. He didn't pick the form fullback, James Tedesco. He also didn't pick a form centre because Latrell Mitchell has been playing fullback. I think he's played half a game or 2 games for South Sydney at centre. In terms of Nathan Cleary, I think he needs saving. So I wonder, and when I know we're going to talk about this later, the Kangaroos might save him and drop him. Nathan Cleary will have never been dropped in his life. Okay? So one of the things that will be going around his head is that day will be coming at some point, that tough conversation. Now, I genuinely believe, I don't know Nathan Cleary. He was at Penrith after I was at Penrith. But I can tell when a player walks around with their head down. And he's walking around with his head down in a Blues jumper. He doesn't look himself, and he plays confused, and he plays like he's not in a good headspace. In terms of hooker and the utility role, Connor Watson actually causes the structure of New South Wales to go a little bit haywire. So I agree with you in terms of his utility value, Scott. I can't argue with that. However, there was a definite difference in the direction the team had when Reece Robson came off versus when Connor Watson came on. And if you think about the hooker, they're the first person that touches the ball. So they're the ultimate director in terms of direction. I still think that New South Wales have been at their best when they've had a 2 hooker combination, and the second one has been a player like Api Karasa. Now, that option might be Braley at Cronulla now, okay? But I definitely think New South Wales need to do something there. So look, all I think we're doing, Scott, is talking about the whys and wherefores. In terms of Cleary, yes, Katoa would be an option. There's also a fella called Mitchell Moses that probably has arrived in his time now as well.
Yep, absolutely. So, look, there's lots of change, and now we're, the furthest point away from the next Origin team, but it is good to think about that. But we'll put the Blues to the side for the moment, and probably the rest of the year. But on the Queensland side of things, Darren, I'll go to you since you're the one that leans the most towards the Maroons. So, in terms of Tom Dearden, where does that performance rank among some of the best Origin performances?
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to that. There's his performance in justifying it, and also Billy Slater putting the, what's on the line, obviously, after game 1 by dropping the captain and then backing in that call. And we've emphasised throughout the whole series that it felt like Queensland had to tactically invent the win or through those decisions. And if you lined the 2 sides up side by side, it felt like New South Wales were the stronger. Queensland had to roll the dice at certain things. They did, and Tom Dearden justifies that with a starring role and a series-defining role, and he'll pop up later very much in our conversations around Australia. So credit to him, but also, Scott, credit to Billy, who made a call that got a heck of a lot of attention and can sit back now with a trophy and with the player responding.
Yeah, I think I labelled it on Zero Tackle as probably the biggest State of Origin call. Certainly I can remember. I'm not as old as you guys, but Certainly the biggest call I can remember. But Tom did and stood up to the mark. What I was most impressed with was his defence. He was phenomenal at that end of the park. Just some of the tackles he made and the way he moved in the line, I thought for a halfback it was one of the better defensive performances I've ever seen. His attack was obviously off the charts, and I rated him a 10 out of 10 in our player ratings, and I still think that's well deserved.
I just want to add a word for the player who was alongside him, both numerically and on the field. There's not many players who would play in such a high-octane and high-important game a day or two after losing a very, very close family member, and I think that needs to go down in Origin folklore. Cameron Munster, I'm talking about, obviously.
Agree.
Absolutely. It was just an really... And we've talked to the tactical side of everything and the list and everything, but there was just that huge emotional element for the Maroons going into their game. And congratulations to them. We'll go again next year. Moving on now to the regular NRL Premiership season. So we'll go to you, Lee. So first game off the rank, Sharks getting over the Dolphins. Does that win ease a little bit of pressure on Craig Fitzgibbon?
I'm going to give you a little lesson in marine biology. Did you know that there was a full moon this weekend? I think it was Thursday, Friday.
I did not know.
I think I saw that on the coverage of every single game that was played at night.
Okay. Well, did you know that when sharks are in water, they have alternating periods of rest and wakefulness? I'm talking about sharks now. I'm not talking about Cronulla. Although you could confuse the two, because Cronulla Sharks had periods of rest and wakefulness during this game. They nearly gave the game back to the Dolphins, but I think they'll be over the moon with the victory. They've also been asleep quite a bit in the last few weeks, and just like their water-based namesakes, sharks do apparently sleep with their eyes open. So that's what Fitzgibbon's had to deal with. Dolphins didn't have their defence on point first half. They were way off. There was the first try that Nico Hines, who had a great game, scored. They numbered up on the short side, the Dolphins, and I thought, they're not going to go to the short side, Cronulla. Cronulla went to the short side, and Hines walked over Herbie Farnworth. And I thought, something's not right with the Dolphins here. In the second half, they got the defence right, the Dolphins, and they started to put Cronulla under the pump a bit more. But their attack didn't really click. I just think that it was one of those games that if Cronulla didn't win it, Darren, the pressure would have been on. The Dolphins can turn to not having the hammer, flying to Cronulla, etc. It was one of those games that Cronulla had to win. Dolphins probably didn't really need to win. They probably needed to suffer a little bit.
I was just reading that some sharks also have a special electroreceptor sense where they can cue in with others, and that late play where they were about to lose, and they obviously got across and were able to somehow deny the other match winner and then race down and wrap it up. Maybe they a little bit of telekinesis or something between them, but they needed to win that. The Sharks, as you say, they've been dropping in and out of games and a loss there. I mean, it's a potential circuit breaker, I think, in the sense that if you shake off one of those against a team that scores heavily, and probably the flip side of that coin, Scott, is that we've spoken extensively about how heavily the Dolphins can score, but the test was going to be when you come up against sides that could take something off them a little bit, where they couldn't just freewheel. And look, they'll face those challenges again, and they're still capable. But yeah, it just goes to show that maybe if teams take something off them, they're not as adept at taking it back the other way.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Dolphins. I think what Friday night. Was it Friday night? I think Friday night. I think what the game proved is the Dolphins still have a little bit of a way to go in their development. I think Isaiah Katoa has been fantastic the last month, but he's still got a little bit of a way to go in his development against good defensive sides. On Cronulla, I'm not sure there's too much I can add after that wonderful analogy about full moons and everything else, but I think it does ease a little bit of pressure on Craig Fitzgibbon. Not much, a little bit, gives him a little bit of breathing space. I thought Nico Hines played a really, really good game, but to me, it's Nico plays best when he's not doing all of the organisational work. And I wonder if there's actually a little bit of a thing there where you put Braden Trindle in the 7 and Nico Hines in the 6 and try to free him up, because to me, it just seems Hines plays better when he's at 5'8".
Or I'd put him at fullback, maybe.
Well, yeah.
I did a little bit of Googling there of what happens to dolphins during a full moon, but I'm going to just leave it, because obviously it was a water-based battle, so...
Oh, I think we should move on.
Yeah.
This is fast turning into spinach and broccoli areas.
Yeah. Last week it was spinach. This week is marine biology. We need to move on to the Storm and the Knights, Darren. So your boys got up over the Knights. Probably not a huge surprising one, but the Knights did have a lot of injuries in that game.
Missed the memo though, because I was always sure that dolphins were like the Achilles heel for sharks. Like they were the ones that if you're getting attacked by a great white shark, you wanted a dolphin around because they could potentially save you. But didn't work on that occasion. But yeah, look, a few edges to this. Obviously, the Knights injury situation, given Ponga and Sharp, and then Lucas with that, the dreaded Liz Frank. Another one of those. The Storm rested a few of their origin players. They then managed minutes of some of the others too. Powerful second half, Lee, where they responded to the challenge and put the game to bed. They were likely to win the game, but it was not without. I mean, it's what you might refer to as a banana peel when you come out of that origin period with a few guys out on the road, but they got it done.
Both teams had players missing. I thought Jerome Hughes was really good in the second half. 4 try assists and a 40-20. He was better than his first half. I just think it was a theme throughout the weekend. Some teams were just a little bit off defensively because of the origin hangover, or they had a lot of errors in attack. I think Newcastle had a bit of both, and Melbourne Storm managed to get themselves sorted. Question for you, Scott, and Darren, you can come in to it in this, and whoever gets this first gets a cup of tea. What have Melbourne Storm and Hull FC got in common that makes them different from every other top-flight full-time professional team?
Haven't got a clue, mate.
I get the feeling it's going to be obscure.
I'll leave it to the end of the podcast. I'll leave it to the end of the podcast. Have a think. Maybe do some Googling or something on the sly when one of us is talking. Yeah.
We're doing riddles now.
The listeners can have a think too.
Just on that game, yeah, Newcastle's injuries are, I mean, if they're going to have them, this is probably the season to have them, because they're out of the mix. They're not going to make the 8. They're not going to do any damage to anybody. So if you're going to have a bundle of injuries, well, this is probably the time. Melbourne, they've got to be the premiership favourites, haven't they? There's just, I know Canberra are playing well, but to me, they have too many lapses in their game to go big in September. Canterbury are on a greasy pole going nowhere. We're shaping up for Melbourne Penrith again. It's just, it's ridiculous, but this is where we are. Yep.
Absolutely. We'll get to Penrith in a moment, but first, Scott, I feel like we need to talk about this game. The Roosters 31 to the Dragons 24. On this rundown sheet that you have written, there is just one word: a sigh.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough too. It probably encompasses the feelings of Dragons fans quite nicely, because they were on top in the first half in that game, and then Sam Walker got sent to the sin bin. We'll get onto that in a minute. And somehow the Dragons played worse while they were up against 12, and then just didn't come out at halftime. I don't know if Shane Flanagan gave them sleeping pills during the break or what happened, but they didn't look the same team after the break. Effort's been a major problem for the Dragons this year. It was again against the Roosters. Their line speed was awful. Kyle Flanagan's kicking game, it would be a cure for insomnia. There's no height, there's no depth. He picks out the fullback every single time. I don't know where the Dragons... Shane Flanagan has tried everything this year. He's dropped half the team, recalled half the team. Kyle Flanagan's got to go. I've tried to defend Kyle Flanagan throughout this season. I've really tried, but I'm sick of trying. He needs to be dropped.
Because of the full moon, the tide was coming in on both the wings. Tyrell Sloan's wing and Mark Nwanganitawaze's wing. Sloan was turning his hips in defence all the time. He didn't know what to do. But Nwanga was literally all at sea. There was 30 points, Darren, in the first 18 minutes. 5 tries in the first 18 minutes. Defence was at a premium.
I was going to say, I'd love a coach to come out in a press conference after the game and reference something like that. It'd be like, "What happened today? Oh, it was a winter solstice." You know what I mean? It's it just wasn't our day.
Tell you what, Shane Flanagan hasn't got much more to call on. He might as well at this point.
I just think, like many games this weekend, it lacked a hard edge due to Origin. So
yeah, it did. Yeah. But the Dragons had no excuses, mate. They got one player backing up from Origin. The Roosters have got 5, and they played with far more effort than us. As I said, I don't know where the Dragons turn next. I think you can put a fork in the finals for this year. That's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
They had to win that game, and when you're up 6 points and then get a player go to the sin bin and somehow play worse after that, it almost defies belief. Just on that sin bin, by the way, Sam Walker was sin bin for a cannonball tackle. It was absolutely a sin bin 100 times out of 100. And then the MRC turn around Sunday morning and don't charge him. The MRC are so inconsistent, and I've said it on this show before, I've said it on the website before. It does my head in that a bloke can get sin binned, and rightfully so, and not even a grade 1 charge for a very dangerous tackle.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving now to the Bulldogs and the Cowboys. I'll go to you for this one, Lee. So I feel like we've been talking about him, mentioned him at least every week, but Lachlan Galvin getting dropped for this one. So that's the biggest talking point out of this one. You've got something for yourself as well, but let's start with Lachlan Galvin and what his role is for the rest of 2025 now.
Well, he's actually linked to Andrew's message that he sent through to the mailbag. And he basically said, Phil Gould may have butchered the Bulldogs a bit here, brought Galvin thinking he can be a 7 long term, but he'll never be a decent 7 for at least another 5 to 10 years, if ever. That was the lead of his message. Now, I don't care how any Bulldogs fan tries to hide this, deflect this, and I don't care how any Bulldogs member of staff tries to hide this and deflect this either. Since Galvin has arrived at that club, the Bulldogs haven't played very well because they've been trying to accommodate him. Now, is that Galvin's fault? No. Okay. Is Galvin going to be a good player for the Bulldogs? Yes. Should he have come to the club mid-season is what I question. The other thing, without Galvin, the Dogs went back to being a more attritional, grinding football side that was the thing that had them at the top of the ladder for the first half of the season. But something is still not right there at that club. It was a gritty performance, but the Cowboys had 17 errors. Their completion rate was in the 60s, and the Dogs was nearly 80%. It's also the first time the Cowboys have kept a team to 12 points all year. So something is not right still in the Canterbury attack. Now, I've got to mention full moons again, because, as you know, that impacts sleep patterns. And quote from Todd Payton, he is losing sleep at night over errors committed by his team. So it's 17 errors that day, Darren. 17 errors, including drink water, not putting the ball down for a try. He'll have no... Oh, no, he's lost all his hair, hasn't he? Yeah, he won't be sleeping anymore. He'll put weight on. I'll bet.
Frustrating thing for the Cowboys is that they've been pretty loose defensively, as you mentioned, first one of their best defensive efforts of the year in that game, but then other parts of it don't exactly work for them when they're, a chance to take it. The Bulldogs, if we examine their form closely, I think you're right, but a couple of weeks ago they lost a 50-50 game to Penrith. It was one of the games of the season. The Broncos seemed to cause them problems, which they've done 3 times this year if you count pre-season, and then obviously they come through and get a result here. They had to. Obviously, if you lose that, it starts to spiral a little bit, Scott, but I would think that they've minimised the damage through a little down spot. They're working a few things out, and they've got enough of a body of work that they can consider themselves in the mix if they click again.
Oh, look, yeah, they're in the mix, but it was a scratchy win. It was like the first half of that game was awful. Just drop balls and no attacking flair. It was not good rugby league early on. But just on the Galvin thing, I mean, I've said it a bit. I don't understand why the Bulldogs signed him. I don't understand why they wanted him mid-season. You've got a team sitting top of the table. Why on earth would you destabilise your spine? If you're going to bring in a forward, yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. Get more depth in an area where you need more players, whatever. But Toby Sexton is doing a good job. Matt Burton's your 5'8". You don't need Lachlan Galvin. All it does is as Lee said, destabilise things. I think I never had them pegged for the premiership anyway, but I think if they don't win it, a big part of it goes down to this signing. I just don't think it makes any sense. And more concerningly for the long term, the fact that last weekend Matt Burton, or was it the weekend before, Matt Burton played in the centres instead of playing either Galvin or Burton at halfback, says that neither of them are a number 7. And what are we going to have? Mitch Woods, a rookie, in next year at halfback for a team who should be in their premiership window? Just doesn't make any sense.
Alrighty, so next game on the rundown. My Warriors finally got a win, Darren, over the West Tigers, this time 34-14. So big question out of that one. Tanner Boyd, is he keeping the Warriors in the mix?
Oh, yeah, and he has to, too. Obviously, he's been appointed as the incumbent, so to speak, off the back of the Metcalf injury. It's the theme of the round. Teams had to win. The Sharks had to win. The Warriors had to win. The Bulldogs had to win just to, keep things ticking along. There's a stat that looks worse than it is. The Warriors hadn't won in 36 days, but they had 2 byes through that period and 2 losses, one to Penrith and one to Brisbane. So 2 sides that are in cracking form. They lost some players through injury. And given the pressure on top 4, Lee, with those 2 sides we just mentioned, obviously hot on the heels, and how important it is. I mean, the difference for every side between 4th and 5th is enormous, but for the Warriors particularly so. And obviously if they could finish 2nd, even better for them. So, crucial result.
There's not many teams that have somebody of the quality of Tanner Boyd in reserve. I mean, I think Tanner Boyd would have gone there thinking that potentially he would have been first choice. I think Metcalf has been a shock to many of us in terms of his breakout year. I have a little bit of bias when it comes to this. Tanner Boyd played against my Ipswich State High team in 2017, I'm tempted to say. It was a big game for Keebler Park versus Ipswich High. Really tough game, about 5 future Origin players playing, about 10 future NRL players. The game was Tanner Boyd and David Fafita 18, Ipswich State High 10. That night, Tanner Boyd just literally controlled everything on a shoestring, and that's what he does. He was just so unlucky, though, Scott, that you'll remember this, he was stockpiled at Brisbane with every other half that lived north of the Tweed. There was a fella called Tom Dearden who was a year later just down the road at Palm Beach, Currumbin, and they won the national title that year. But also, Corey Pakes actually came to the Broncos as a half, and he was a bit older than both of those boys. So I think the Warriors have stumbled across somebody who's going to really, really, really steady them this season.
Well, all 3 of those guys you just mentioned, I've had a lot of time for as they've come through the pathways. I actually thought Corey Pay was going to be the best of them. He hasn't kicked on to the extent that I thought he would have. Tom Dearden's now obviously setting the world on fire, and Tanner Boyd got stuck at the Titans there for a while. Really struggled to sort of make his own way. You're right. I thought when he went to the Warriors, I thought he and Metcalf might have been their first choice halves pairing this year. Didn't work that way, obviously, with Metcalf going into the 7. But now this injury gives Tanner Boyd a chance to step up in a system that's working and really prove what he's about at NRL level. And I thought he was excellent yesterday. I know it was only the West Tigers. There's certainly going to be tougher opposition they'll play between now and the end of the season. But Yeah, I thought Tanner Boyd was really good. He just controlled the game nicely. His kicking game was solid. And if he continues down that path, well, there's no reason the Warriors can't achieve the same results that they were going to achieve with Metcalf in the form that he was in. Obviously, we know Metcalf is, as you said, Lee, had a breakout season and probably been one of the competition's better players this season. But yeah, I mean, like when he went down, it was pretty clear cut. Everyone thought the Warriors were done. I'm not so sure that's the case anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for me. Usually we're pretty used to the Warriors going on a run during the Origin period. So seeing that stat of 36 days since their last win was, worrying. But up the was. Next game, Scott. The Panthers are just they're coming. It is a little bit scary because I thought at the start of the season, maybe 8 rounds in, I was like, oh, we don't have to talk about the Panthers at all this year. Now they're sitting, I think, 6th on the ladder and getting over the Eels again. So what did we make of that one?
Yeah, I was really excited for a shake-up of the rugby league landscape. I thought, you beauty, Penrith have won 4, their time's done. We'll get some new teams up the front, but it's not looking that way. I said it when we talked about the Storm earlier, but we're on a collision course for another Melbourne-Penrith grand final year. Every other team in the top 8, I don't think they'll match up to these sides come September. I know the Panthers have lost James Fisher-Harris and Jerome Luai this year, but it looks like they finally worked out how to play without those guys. And they're in really good nick, Penrith, and they're coming good at the right time of the year. Maybe there was a bit of a hangover from Vegas and all the extra games they've played over the last 4 years. I know Darren said that multiple times on the podcast throughout the year, just how many extra games they've played over the last 4 years, and it's got to take it out of you. But maybe they are coming good at the right time. Just quickly on the Eels as well, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, Lee, as a coach. Obviously, Dylan Brown signed with Newcastle for next year, and then he runs out at hooker yesterday, plays a bit of lock at the back end in less than half a game. They've obviously earmarked Joash Papali'i as their future number 6. Where do you see Dylan Brown slotting into this Parramatta team for the rest of the year?
Reserve grade.
Yeah, I was
honestly, what's the point of using him, really? And I think Ryle's part of my thought was that he's thinking next season. There's no point him investing any time in Dylan Brown now. They're not going to win the Premiership. They're not going to get into the finals. Doesn't matter if they finish bottom or third from bottom. He's had a long-term approach to most things, Jason Ryle, so I think he might have been moved to hooker to accommodate the 6 and 7 yesterday. Back to Penrith. I think Canberra Raiders will have something to say about what you said, Scott. I feel like I'm having a go at your selections and your picks today, but I think Canberra Raiders will have something to say this year. I think they're looking quite good. Broncos are coming strong too. They're getting every player back, and even Ben Hunt has come back from injury now, so their archaic halves combination will get back together again soon. When it comes to Penrith, I think first of all they may have left their run a little bit too late. Secondly, one of the things that has made Penrith successful over the last 5 years has been that if they did have 1 or 2 injuries leading into the finals or during the finals, somebody would step up and just fit in straight away. Now, right now, their second option in the halves is Brad Schneider, and teams are targeting him in defence. He is a speed bump in defence, quite frankly. The first try that Parramatta scored was off the back of a quick play the ball on Schneider. So I do think that their second string isn't quite as good. And if you look historically, Darren, at how Penrith were successful, they were winning a lot of lower grade titles or near as damn it to winning lower grade titles, and those players were coming through. If you look at the last 5 or 6 years, they've actually dropped out of finals contention or been lower in the finals in a couple of those competitions. And obviously, Canterbury Bulldogs have been signing more of the local juniors as well and whatnot. So I literally think that, I mean, I'm getting nervous, but I wrote a piece on Zero Tackle that Scott will remember that saying the dynasty is over. I am getting nervous, but there are signs that are realistic signs that I think at the end of the season, Darren will be going, oh yeah, that's why they didn't win it.
Possibly. I mean, it's interesting. There are 2 key parts of the season. They're going to win their next 4, you would think. Rabbitohs, Tigers, Titans and Knights. Can't see them losing any of those. But then the finals start early. That 3-week block where they play the Storm, the Raiders and the Bulldogs. That is a fascinating 3-week block of the season for Penrith. That is a race for the top 4 before the finals begins. So bring that on. That month of footy is going to be elite.
Absolutely. And we'll just touch on this one quickly because we did just mention it, but the Broncos, Lee got over the Titans quickly. Des Hasler believes he's safe after that game, but should he think that?
There's too much noise around. Do you remember a few months ago I hinted that there was half the squad at the Titans that weren't very happy and half the squad were? Well, now that actually got put in print last week. So it was right. So there's big problems there. I don't like the way Des has been treated. I think he deserves a bit more respect than this kind of thing leaking out. But it's pretty clear they need to move on. It's not worked. I never liked the idea of that marriage anyway, if I'm honest, between Des and the Titans. It just didn't sit right with me from the start. And I've worked with Des, so I know what Des can be like. And I'm not saying he's not evolved, but yeah, he just didn't seem right, that coach selection. Just like the Laurie Daly one just didn't seem right.
I was about to say, you said it at the start of the show, and we were talking about Laurie Daly and the Blues. A coach's job is to improve a team, and the Titans have gone backwards under Des Hasler, which I didn't actually think was possible because they're already struggling. Des has got to go. I don't know if it's just him at the Titans or whether the game's passed Des Hasler by, but he's certainly not going. He shouldn't be there next year. I think he'll see the season out, but anything more than that, I think would be way too much, way too long. As you said, it looks as if the squad has lost the dressing room. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui said, no, he hasn't, but of course, the captain's going to back his coach.
Absolutely. All right, and
another shark reference, Lee. I was going to say there's blood in the water. They can smell blood in the water. I think when you start to get that sort of thing going on, once those questions get asked, you're in all sorts of trouble. But I think the media and those that are reporting on it can very much smell blood in the water here.
Well, the moon is out. Des can say good night.
All right, I'll change the podcast music to the Jaws theme song. Locks are for the Ashes. So Origin is done. Always a good look now to who we put into this Ashes team, which is very exciting, Darren. So I think the first one is going to be Cleary or Dearden. What do you reckon?
Yeah, do they go the incumbent? Do they go the new one? I know we'll give Lee a chance to plug. He's got his tour for this, not too far away. But you'd think Dearden in the mix in a couple of roles and we'll be in the 17 somewhere. And how much do we sort of take out of that? I mean, you look at the likes of, Haas and Grant and Coates and Edwards and those sorts of players, Do they hold Cam Munster, another one, obviously enhancing his reputation, if that was even possible after recent times as well. But where do you sit, Lee, on Cleary versus Dearden? Dearden will be there. It's just whether he's in single digits or double digits.
Well, being the oldest on this panel, I mean, I'm only 28, so you boys must be really young, but it brought me back to Ricky Stewart and Alfie Langer in the 1990 and 94 tours. Bozo Fulton selected Queenslander Alfie Langer for the first test in both series. Britain beat Australia in both openers in 1990 and 94, so we switched to Ricky Stewart. We're forgetting something, though, and even I forgot this originally, Scott. The incumbent in the 7 jersey for Australia is Mitchell Moses. So, put it this way, I don't think Cleary... Whoever becomes the Australia coach, and the way it's going, I think I might be the Australia coach soon. Everyone seems to be missing out on it. That they could do a job for New South Wales by being the first person to drop Cleary from a team.
Yeah, I think... The way I look at it, I'm not sure how many are going to be picked in the squad, but I assume it'll be 25. somewhere in that vicinity. I think Cleary and Dearden are both going to travel. But this isn't a World Cup group stage where you give everybody a game and you know, everybody plays so that everybody's fit come the finals. Like, it's a 3-test series and you've got to win. So you pick your best 17 and if they work, you stick with your best 17. I think Dearden might get the nod at 7. I really do. You're right, Lee. I think whoever the Australian coach rather is will do the Blues a favour by dropping Cleary. But I think Dearden is the form halfback. He's the only reason the Cowboys are anywhere near the 8. Well, not single-handedly, but he was, you know, player of the series in State of Origin. How do you leave him out of Game 1?
What they will need in Game 1, because they don't have a warm-up game.
Yeah, correct.
And if you look at trips to England historically, I mean, people who come on my tour will be okay. We'll be in the bar for a couple of days. We'll be fine. Come the first test match. We'll be ready. We'll be loose. But history suggests if you don't prepare properly for your first big game in England, be it the World Club Challenge, first match of a Test Series, World Cup, jet lag will get you. Samoa will testify to that in the opener of the World Cup a couple of years ago. So that means to me, whoever the Australian coach is, has to pick a spine that knows each other. So that would point to Munster and Dearden at 6 and 7, and it might even point to the Hammer at fullback, or Ponga if he's available. Okay. Yeah. So that's a consideration there. Harry Grant will be the hooker too.
Yeah, there's no question there.
So that I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be the squad in Game 2 and Game 3, but as a coach, you've got to cut down as many of the moving parts as you can when you're in a situation when there's a lot of moving parts. And there's going to be a lot of moving parts. That first test, they're flying in the week before, no warm-up game. As a coach, I would reduce the moving parts that I have to fix. What can look after itself? What can coach itself? What can just work? And I would have thought that a Queensland spine might be the way to do it in Game 1.
Yeah, it might well be. Because, certainly Munster and Grant are going to be there. So, maybe Dearden is the answer. As I said, I think he'll get picked anyway.
Should do.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and now just finishing up with a little bit of contract news, which seems to be sort of recycled contract news from last year, Scott. But Kaeo Weekes is going to be re-signed again.
Yeah, well, you can't say he doesn't deserve it. He's been in fantastic form, real breakout season for Weekes. He re-signed in September last year through to the end of 2027. And now the talk is the Raiders want to extend him all the way out to 2029. Good bit of business for the Raiders, I think. He's been in really good form. And certainly if he's saying, look, I want to be here long term, the Raiders probably should be biting his hand off to do it. They're sitting in the top 4 when no one gave him a chance pre-season, and Weekes has been a big part of the reason. As a Dragons fan, I watched a fortnight ago as he ripped us in half down in Canberra, and he's done that to plenty of teams throughout the course of the season. So I think it's probably a good bit of business for Canberra. What it does mean though is that Chevy Stewart, I can't see him staying in Canberra long term anymore. If Weekes is their first choice fullback moving forward, and is going to be signed for the next 4 seasons, I can't see Chevy hanging around. I don't know where he lands because again, most clubs around the competition have a first choice fullback, but I don't think he's going to wait around in Canberra for the next 4 years.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move ahead to the round 20 preview. So we'll go around the table. Darren, what games are we looking forward to?
Obviously the Thursday night has some appeal, but I'm going to call your boys on Sunday, Phoenix, the Wars playing away to Newcastle. So they've had a very good record in Australia. They've just broken that little run of outs. Can they come across the pond and get the job done again and enhance their top 4 against a side that's pretty banged up? So I'm keen to see how they fare.
Early game Friday, Sharks Roosters. Was a good one.
That'll be a good one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's a good round of footy. I'll tell you which game I'm not looking forward to: Canterbury St George. We can't
looking at that.
We can't beat the Bulldogs ever. So I might find something else to do at 5:30.
That's my tip for a shock.
Oh, really? Well, thanks, Lee. That gives me some confidence.
Not really. I just wanted to make you feel better. You've been down. You've been down in this podcast.
Thanks, mate. I'm not looking forward to that one. I might find something else to do Saturday night. Yeah, look, it's a good round of footy. Sharks, Roosters, even Dolphins, Cowboys. There's a lot riding on that one when it comes to finals implications.
I think the night's game is a real tricky one for the Warriors because obviously there's still doubts, isn't there?
Yeah, and
Phoenix, as a Wars fan, you still doubt the fact that with all these injured players, whether they can do it, and that's a tough trip to Newcastle.
On the road, yeah, I'm never easy playing in Newcastle. The other game I'm looking forward to is Melbourne Manly. They always seem to put on a show. Doesn't matter where they're located on the table. So no doubt there'll be some push and shove in that one, which will be good fun.
Darren, did you work out my trivia? Hull FC, Melbourne Storm.
I had a feeling it would be quirky, and I reckon it's got something to do with the way their team names finish. No S's, is that right?
Correct. And I also missed another one out because when I last did this trivia, Wakefield Trinity have been promoted and they're no longer the Wildcats. So yes, you get a cup of tea next time I see you, Darren.
Well, Sharks have an S on the end. That's been the theme of the show. So.
All right, well, on that note, I'm going to get Lee to stop talking about Sharks and whatever it is you're talking about. But we can get you to talk about your book.
Oh, what a book.
What are we doing?
What a book. You can find it on rugbyleaguecoach.com.au, and I can even tell you more about it on the Rugby League Coach podcast. But that book, honestly, what a book it is. Phoenix has it every week in his hand, Scott.
It's a great read. I actually finally picked up my copy when I was in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, so I've started reading it. You'd be glad to know.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Good to know I've got friends here.
Yeah, I would recommend it to me, a rugby league fan. It's a good read.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Scott, what do we have in the works at zerotackle.com?
Well, Origin's over. We're about 8 weeks, maybe less now, actually. 8 weeks, 7 weeks, wherever it is out from the finals. So today, or by the time this drops, today still, we start our run home series. So every Monday on Zero Tackle, we will have a look at who your team has to play between now and the end of the season and try to predict the ladder. Trust me, there will be changes every single week because I'm not Nostradamus, but it is a good look at who's left on your menu and who's in the driver's seat to play finals footy.
And Darren, do you always feel left out at this point? I've noticed for the last 4 or 5 weeks, probably because the Warriors have been losing. Darren, Phoenix never says goodbye to you, Darren.
Hey, I've got something in the works with Darren coming very soon, so don't you come to his defense. How dare you? This is my podcast, mate.
I'll say goodbye to you, Darren. Bye, mate.
Bye, Darren.
But actually, no, we did put last week we did do a cool video together on the whether Origin should pause the regular NRL season. So Darren put a lot of work into that, and so did I. And it's a really good video, and you should check it out. It's a good watch.
Strongly recommend everyone check that one out.
Yeah.
People are going to be busy this week watching these videos and reading my book and
reading these books.
Yeah.
Booking tours to England.
Yeah.
Learning about the cycles of the moon. No, when you're finished. This is ridiculous.
All right, let's wrap this up. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.